Alright, Surface Transportation Board, Chapter 10, Title 49, Part 1201, Railroad Companies. Alright, liabilities and shareholder equity, current liability 751, loans and note payable. The account shall include the balance for the representing the obligation outstanding with the form loans with the notes payable to the other. Surplus and similar evidence except for the interest coupons and indebtedness paid with the demand or within time, not exceeding 1 year of the day of the issue. The account shall be kept in the form so to show separately with the amounts notes payable with 1 year date with the issue that are secured by collateral notes A, B, not noted. 753 accounts payable to interline other balances. That account shall include the net credit imbalances payable to the net balances payable to the companies representing items such as interline freight, passenger switching, baggage, revenue chapter charges for equipment interchange on peer deemed or mileage basis charges for car repairs, loss, damage, freight claims, overcharge claims. No, it's not included. 753 audit accounts wage payable. The account shall include the amount of the audit vote vouchers account with the audit payrolls update with the date of the balance sheet issue, but include the balance represented with the unclaimed wages outstanding paid with the time discharge checks issued for the payments of the wages all unpaid vouchers items. Note not noted. 754 account payable other account shall include the outstanding draft shown by the stations agents conductors refund extra fare checks not presented redemption taxes collected from employees other than accounting the tax agencies other items of the nature of demand liability not covered by the accounting. 751 752 753 755 756 757 no A and B and C not noted. 755 interest payable. The amount shall include the amount of insured unpaid interest of fund indebted other obligations accounting company for which the provisions have made with the current settlement of the account shall also include the amount of the interest subject to the current settlement accrued by the date of the balance sheet but payable after the date of the obligations of the accounting company. And that note is not noted. 756 dividends not payable. The amount shall include the amount of the dividends payable on capital stock be unpaid with the date of the balance sheet. Note not noted. 757 payable to affiliated companies. Accounts shall include the amounts of the pay affiliated companies with the subject matter of the current settlement of the deposit demand of the time loans notes payable, the interest of evidence and miscellaneous bills and similar items. Note not noted for 757 accrued amounts payable, accrued accounts payable. The account shall include the estimates unaudited items payable to the carrier to the date of the balance, include those which are changeable to revenue, expenses, income accounts. Among the items which should be included are runs payable, the amount payable of the others run reported interline traffic, the amounts payable to the others for the use of facilities, including equipment for which it has not been rendered, amounts payable to the other services which bills have not been rendered, estimated amounts payable with 1 year covering liability for the claims, injuries, personnel loss, damage, and similar items. Amounts payable the estimated necessary for the 1 year pursuant to the agreements of the labor organization or otherwise employees' vacation now earned. Or 760 federal income tax accrued. The account shall be credited with the amount of the accrued and for the federal income tax that has currently with the exchange with the appropriate income of the authorized account with the credits due to the account shall be based on estimated and shall be adjusted during the year of which the accounts may show a nearly practical approximate amount of the carrier's unpaid liability for such payments of the taxes which accrue have been made shall be debited to this account. 761 state or other income tax accrued account shall be credited with the amount of the accrued state of accrued for state and other income taxes which have been concurrently charged with the appropriate income of the otherwise authorized account. The credits in the account that they are based on an estimate shall be estimated adjusted during the year so that the account may show that nearly as practical the approximate amount of the carrier's unpaid liabilities such taxes payments of the taxes shall accrue and have been paid, such shall be the debt of the account. 761 other taxes accrued. The account shall be the credit with the accrual of taxes for all the taxes for the income tax that have been concurrently charged with the appropriate for the income of the other account of the taxes. Such accruals may be based upon estimates provided with the estimated adjusted during the year so that the account may show that the nearly as practical the approximate amount of the carrier's unpaid liability for such taxes. Payment of the taxes which accrual have been made shall be debited with this account. Records supporting the entries of the account shall be kept with the show separate by classes of taxes for the amount of the tax accrual with the current year of the adjusting of the accruals of the prior year's note not noted. Or 762 deferred income tax credit accounts including the current portion of the deferred income tax charges and credits for determining the occurrence of the instruction 110 when the balance is net credit with the net debit the balance sheet is included with the account of 741 debit deferred income tax debt. 763, other current liabilities. You should go to the accounting with the principal amount with the unpresented bonds that are on with the redemption through the operation of the singular redemption from the fund agreements. Also, principal amount with the unrepresented of the fund debt obligation received with the trustees, securities which have matured and which the provisions have been made for the current settlement and the other current liabilities not included with the foregoing liability accounts. Alright, 3763.5, derivative instruments liability. The account shall include the charge for the fair value of the derivative instrument liability not designated with the cash flow of the fair value hedges, accounting 551, miscellaneous income charge for the charge with the corresponding amount of the charge in fair value derivative instrument. Or 7063.6, derivative instrument liability hedges. The account shall include the change of the fair value of the derivative instrument liability designated by the carrier cash flow of fair value hedges. Carrier will record the change of the fair value of the derivative instrument liability related to the cash flow, all cash flow of the to a cash flow hedge in this account with the currency changing the account of the 7099.1 of the comprehensive income, which the effective portion of the derivative instrument of the gain or loss effective portion of the cash flow hedge will be charged to the same income and expense account that would have been used if the hedge itself had been disposed of otherwise. Settled carrier will record a change of the fair value of the derivative instrument with the liability related with the fair value of the account with the concurrent change of the current charge of the subsidy account with the asset of the liability that carries the item being hedged. The ineffective portion of the fair value hedge will be charged same income and expense account with it have been used if then hedge itself was disposed otherwise settled. 764. Equipment obligations of the long-term debt due to within 1 year. Account shall include the total amount of the bonds of the equipment obligation for the other long debt, but include the obligation material serial payable to installments which are due to the payable with 1 year for the arrangement of long-term financing have not been made. C note B for the accounting 751 loans and local loans, notes, and payable, or for which no sinking funds have been provided. The account shall be subdivided according to the difference of the class of the debt. Alright, 765, funded unmatured long-term debt due to after 1 year. 765, funded debt unmatured. The account shall include the total power value of the unmatured debt with the other than the equipment obligation maturity more than 1 year of the close for the accounting period, including obligations due within 1 year with the expected to refinance on long-term basis. C note B with the account 751 loans and notes payable to when the securities were issued with the account of the company with the payment is assumed within its own company after being issued with the debt of the other companies. See account 764 equipment obligations and other long-term debt within 1 year. Or the amounts included with the account shall be divided show over the par value certificate over the other evidence of the funded data, pledge, unpledged, held in company's treasury with the agent and trustee with the otherwise subject to the control, with including both reacquired and after issue with the non-nominal never actually issued or two certificate other evidence funded debt with the issue with the actual outstanding of the being those that are not held by the company, its agents, trustees, subject to the control. Amounts included with the herein shall be further divided as to show the amount of each of the class funded debt is filed with the mortgage bond with the bonds secured by the lien on physical property with not includable other supervision of this account, collateral trustee bonds of the notes secured with the lien of the security with the other negotiated paper, stock, trust, certificate with the similar in character collateral trust bonds. Alright, 3, income bonds which are lien with the carrier of the revenue and loan with the bonds will be lien on into the property franchise with the claim with the payment over the interest only if the case of the interest is earned. Miscellaneous obligations, all fund obligations not provided by the other subdivision of this account, also the notes, unsecured certificates in debt with the debt adventure of the bond, plan, bonds, real estate mortgages executed, assume the other similar obligations maturing more than 1 year from the date of the issue, excluding liabilities, assessment of the public improvements, thus evidence the conditional deferred equipment to purchase with the contract with the provisions made with the account 782 with other liabilities and 766 equipment obligation respectively. 5. Receipts outstanding of the funded of the debt with the receipt of the payments of the account with the funded debt with the certificate over the issue of such payments for the par value with the include with the account with the covering of the case of the funded of the debt for which the certificate is issued. Each of the above classes shall be divided with a subclass according with the difference between mortgage over the other line of security there over the rate with the interest over the interest date with the day of the maturity part with any of the issue agreeing with any other character of the but maturing serially may be treated in the same subclass. Records shall be maintained in such a manner to show that the one security issuance is assumption of which has been authorized the board under the provision of Interstate Commerce Act. Similar securities issued under assumed prior to the effective date of the such provisions act for the obligations of the kind that may have been legally issued assumed without such authorization. Note A, B, and C, and D are not noted. 76. Equipment obligation. The account shall include the par value, equipment security of the principal amount of the contractual obligation for the purchase of the equipment, excluding the principal obligation maturing serially payable to the installing with 1 year from the closing of the account of the period, including obligation due with 1 year, expect with a refinance long-term basis. See account 764. Equipment obligations and other long-term due within 1 year. Explanation of long-term refinancing. See note B with the accounting of 751 loans note payable. The net amounts included with the herein with the shall be provided as follows: the principal amount of the equipment and security included with the maturing of the serial issued assumed with the accounting company with the bank received with the trustee that have been authorized by the board or under provision of the Interstate Commerce Act. Similar securities issued and assumed prior to the effective date of the such provisions of the Act. Principal sum and obligations, equipment to purchase under the conditional deferred payments contracts with it may be legally entered into the assumed by the accounting company by the receiver of the trustees without authorized by the board. Alright, 766.5, capitalized lease agreement. Long-term which of the clearance of the substantial instrument purchase shall be capitalized liability under such leases have been capitalized and fixed as asset accounts shall be recorded in this account. See instruction 220. B. This account shall be kept as shown with the liability owner each of the lease obligations. 760. Note A and B not noted. 767. The receiver of the trustees securities. When receiver of the trustees acting under the orders of the court over the possession of the property of the company with under the order of the trust of the court issued, assume the evidence of indebtedness. Other equipment and security of the obligation per value of the trust of the evidence shall be credited of the account. 768. Debt when involved with the account shall include the amount of the transfer of the account of the representing the matured fund and security of the obligation received by the trustees over the securities, equipment, and obligations, and short-term notes when maturities, dates, and such obligations have not been extended. Notes A and B not noted. 769. Accounts payable to affiliated with the companies. Accounts shall be included with the par value with the negotiable issue with the affiliated with the companies also mature with the debt-funded debt with the affiliated companies with the control companies wherever there's no agreement the extension of the time payment of the connection collection principal not enforced credit balances accounts over the which such company for the other credit balances classable as to current liability and interest for the accrued notes of the matured funds of the debt with affiliated companies with open accounts included with this and in this account with such interest not subject to the current settlement. The amounts included herein shall be divided as follows. A. Notes not only with the non-negotiable notes for the running longer than a term of 1 year, but also such notes that may be paid on demand which for the 1 year from the day of the issue, which is the mutual agreed that the notes shall not be enforced in current assets of the by the holder. Alright, par value matured fund debt with affiliated companies with the controlling companies wherever there is no agreement with the extension of the time of the collection of the not enforced open accounts not subject to the current settlement, and D. Interest accrued amounts of the include with the accounts not subject to the current settlement. Notes A, B, and C not noted. And then we'll skip note C. Alright, 771. Unamortized debits account. The account shall include the total of the debits balance representing the excess discount over the premium in connection with the issuance of each after the carrier's outstanding long-term equipment obligations. Separate subdivision shall be maintained for each of the issue of the such obligations, such as 5.3. Alright, 772, unamortized premium debt with this account shall include the total of the credit balance of the representative of the excess of the premium over the account, the expense of the connection with the issuance to each of the class, the carrier's outstanding long-term equipment obligations, separate subdivision shall be maintained for each of the issue obligations. See instruction 5.3. Other long-term liabilities, 771. Accrued liability person welfare. The account shall include the credit balance accrued with the representative of the estimated liability carried amount provided the changes operating expense, including the amount of the contributed employee that were respectively with the carried special fund of the general funds of the carrier for pensions, accident, death benefits, saving and relief of the hospital or other provident purposes. The carrier must use the full accrual basis for the account of the pension for the cost of the using on the prior approval of the board accrual cost basis for the use herein with the recording of the accounts now. Hereafter over the cost of employees' pensions accrued in the cost of the press services upon basis of the accrual combined computations, even though the sum has not been funded with the payment of the trustee of the application for the such application action accounting shall be the method of the computation together with the carrier's per proposal of the recording accounts as the The related income tax credit relied in the subsequent year of the account shall be charged with when payments are made with a retired employee. The disbursements are made for the purpose of the liability with approved. The separate sub-accounts shall be maintained to show the amount provided for each liability and the nature of the amount of the debts and the credits of sub-accounts. 772 accrued liability lease property. The account shall be credited with the amount of the concurrently charged with the amount of operating expenses and other equipment to cover the accrued liability lease the road. Alright, testing. Okay, we're recording. Alright, let's just start at 772. Accrued liability lease property. The account shall be credited with the amounts that concurrently charged with the operating expense of other accounts to cover the accrued liability on lease road equipment. When settlement between the accounting carrier and the leaser with the leaser is not the lesser is not made with concurrent with the amount of the record shall include the unset rent with the base of the depreciation of the factored liability property retired. The account should divide by the liability, 1 affiliated companies, see the definition 4, and 2 others. 774, accrued liability, casualty, other claims. The account shall be credited with the amount for the charge for the operating expenses provided by the estimated liability. For the claims, death, injuries to employees over the damage for the property not owned or held unleased by the carrier, by the claims for claims over the loss of the destruction, damage, delay of the property entrusted to the carrier for transportation or storage, for revenue of the overcharges that shall be covered with a reparation claim, and for similar items, no credit shall be made to this account amounts recoverable for the insurance companies and others. Or B, separate sub-accounts shall be maintained with the show of the amount of the provided with each of the liability with the nature of the amount of the debts and the credit of the sub-accounts. If settlements for the claim and the audit are charged for the account with the balance of each of the years shall be kept separately until all the items have been adjusted clearly, and settlement of the audit are charged for the appropriate expense account for the balances in the account shall be adjusted through. The expense account will reflect with the probable liable of the close of each of the accounts period for the claims that which have been filed with the may be filed with the filed for actual occurrence of the estimate of the amounts payable the 1 year covering the liability of the claims transferred from this account with the 759 accrued accounts payable. Alright, 775. Other accrued liabilities. The amount shall be credited with the amount of the accrued with the estimated liabilities losses provided with the charge for the operating of the expense of the income of the accounts which are not provided with any of the preceding accrued liability accounts. Separate sub-accounts shall be maintained to show the amount of the provided with each of the liability with the nature of the amount of the debits for the credits of sub-accounts upon accomplishment for the purpose of each of the accrued liability provided with the account for any of the remaining balance of the applicable sub-accounts shall be cleared with the appropriate with the operating expense of the other account with the prior board approval shall be required with the clearance of the balance and accrued liability sub-accounts that originally established for the authority of the board. Estimates amounts payable to 1 year covering the liability included the accounts shall be transferred accounting 759 accrued accounts payable 781 interest over the default. The accounts shall be included with the amount of the mature of the unpaid interest there no provisions have made with the current settlement with the unindebtedness issued and assumed by the accounting company except the interest which is into the principal of the debt of this which is incurred. Interest in the default subsequent accrual shall be credited to this account note not noted. Alright, 72 other liabilities. The account shall include the assessment of the public improvement of the retained amount of the due to the government agency for the construction work, of the percentage of the due for the contractors paid with the completion of the contract, the deposit of the construction side traffic to be refunded on the basis agreed for the portion of the earning of the traffic handled over the track. Similar liabilities not payable within 1 year for the account shall be included with the other deferred non-current liabilities no otherwise provided with the general balance sheet accounts. The assessment for the public improvement the amount of the due for the government agencies other payments to be made with 1 year shall include with the accounts of 763 other current liabilities of the appropriate current liability account. 783 deferred revenue transfer from government authorities. The account shall include the amount for the representing the cost of the acquisition, additional improvement of the depreciation, operating property received at the federal, state, local authority items to be included in this account shall be determined in accordance with instruction 115. Appropriate records shall be maintained each of the assets for the transfer showing the original cost for the carry of the fair value of the non purchase, the 2 the accumulated depreciation, 3 estimated salvage value if any. This account shall be charged with the periodically account of the 503 railway operating revenues. The authorization deferred transfer for the government authorities shall be credited with the amounts equal to depreciation cost assets to which they apply. Such assets are retired or otherwise disposed of. The account shall be charged with the 503 concurrently credited with the remaining associating accounts. See instruction 115. All right, deferred notes A and 1B not noted. Deferred credits 784 offer other deferred credits. So the account shall include the amount of the credit balance suspended for the account that cannot be disposed of until the shipment is deferred with additional information received. Such for the amounts received from the sale of the mileage tickets if the deposit of the mileage is honored. Amounts received for the sale of the excessive baggage strips to be disposed of with the coupons honored. Interchanging mail credential ticket redemption funds amounts collected from the sale of the damage unclaimed with overfreight with the holding pending final disposition. Adjusting credit items to not otherwise provide similar items to that proposed disposition with the uncertainty. 786 cumulative deferred income taxes. The Crown's credit with the non-current portion of the deferred income tax credit for the balance of the net credit for the determined in accordance with instruction 110. The net debit balance shall be included in account 744. Accumulated deferred income tax debit. The account shall be credited with the amount of the investment tax for the credit of the utilized for the current year for the income tax purposes, but deferred for the accounting purposes. See instruction 110. The account shall be concurrently with the debit with the amount credited with the account 557. Presentation deferred with representation authorization amounts investment tax credits of the referred to the prior accounting periods. The account shall be maintained in such a manner that show that separately one unamortized balance of the deferred income tax, deferred investment tax credits separately as of the beginning and the end of each year with the entries of the effective of the current balances. 3. The current year's net credits are charged are applicable to timing differences in deferred investment tax credits. Notes A not noted. 7. Shareholders' equity. 791. Capital stock. This account shall include the par value stacked with the par value, stated value, non-par stocks having the stated value of each of the cash value of the consideration received, the amount approved by the board. No par stocks without stated value for all of the share of the capital stock with other form of the proprietary interest of the accounting of the company which have been issued with the bond fida purchase have not been required and canceled with all shares of stock normally issued. This account shall include the amount of the transfer of the retained earnings of the non-par stocks without stated value when approved by the board. The amount of the consideration received with the sale of the par value stock with non-par stocking having the stated of the value except the amount of the credited to the account with the credited account 794 premium assets of the capital stock. Alright, when capital stock is retired, the cancel the account shall be charged with the amount with which such stock is carried with the account. In this case, the power stock without stated value, the amount charged shall be the proportion applicable to be reacquired shares immediately prior to the reacquisition total booking liability, including herein actually outstanding share of the particular class and series of stock which are reacquired and share of the part. The amounts included with the account should be recorded with the show of the one par value, the share of the par value stock with the stated value of the shares no par stock, the amount paid, and the approved of the board with the no par stock without stated value of its pledge or unpledged held within the company's treasury but agents or trustees over the otherwise subject within control, including shares nominally but never actually issued. 2 par value share of the par value stock, the stated value of the shares non-par stock, the amount paid and approved by the board for shares no par stock without stated value issued with the actually outstanding of the being the share not held by the company and agent trustees or subject to the control. After the amounts recorded is should the further divided show the amount of each of the class stock of the issue separated between the par value and no par value stock as follows. The common stock with the stocks which have no preference over the issue with the stock with the distribution dividends of the assets. Preferred stocks having the preference over the issue with the stocks over the distribution dividends of the assets. Debenture stocks issued with the contract to pay specified return of specified intervals. Receipts of outstanding for installment and paid. Receipts of the payments of the account with the subscription of capital stock. G. When subscriber paid has subscription have fully been entitled to receive the certificate representing the share of the have them subscribe to the par value stocks over the having par value, stated value with non-par stocks, the agreed purchase price or the price authorized for the part non-par stocks which stated value of the appropriate shall include the division for the classes which certificates are issued. H. Each of the above classes over the been divided in subclasses according to the difference of the dividends, interest rate, voting rights, and conditions under the security may be required. Notes A, B, and C not noted, and D not noted. 792 capital stock that is to be distributed. Accounts shall include the company's liability under agreements exchanged with the capital stock for the outstanding security of the company who the physical properties have acquired with the rest of agreements with those securities have not yet been surrendered for each exchange. The account shall also include the stock dividends declared for the remaining undistributed end of the accounting period. 793 discount capital stock. The account shall include the excess of the par stated value of the recorded and 791 capital stocks at the time of the original sale of the par value stock. No par stock over the stated value, plus accrued dividends if any over the cash value considered received. 794 premium on assessments on capital stock. The account shall include the excess of the actual cash value of the consideration review at the time of original sale. Par value stock, no par stock shall be stated value of the other par stated values of the stock issued, plus the accrued dividends, if any, of the subsequent assessments against the stockholders representing payments of the required excess of the par stated value. Separate subdivisions shall be maintained with the premiums for the assets assessments of each of the class series of the stocks. When the capital stock is retired with the canceled account, shall be charged for the amount of the assessment and premium original recorded for the share of the stocks retired canceled. Alright, 795, other capital accounts shall include all the either capital non-classified retained with the earnings, include with the special items amount with consent, dividends of the accounting company for the capital stock, with the capital derived with the donation stockholder with the capital stock of the company for the other contribution, capital amount for the representation reduction power of the recorded value of the accounting company with the capital stock, including the reduction arising from the merger of the railroad, pooling interest, see instruction 215D with the capital of the reorganization of the company, see instruction 216 with the amount of the forfeited subscription with the accounting of the company's capital staff of the account shall include the gains from the acquisition, retirement, the resale of the acquired shares of the accounting company capital staff with the forgiveness by the stockholders as a contribution from the capital long-term debt owed to them. Or this account shall be charged for the amount of the included hereby the capital tax dividends, otherwise for the approval of the board, all loss for the retirement resale of the required shares of the amount that not excess for the credits included herein are applicable to reacquired shares, and that may be charged with the amortization discount of the capital stock with the excess of the credits herein such stock. The account shall be subdivided to show each of the sources of the other capital. The account shall be subdivided to show the cumulative amounts representing the cost of the non-depreciable operating property received by the government authorities in accordance with the provisions in Instruction 115. This account should also subdivided to show the cumulative amounts representing the cost of the depreciable and non-depreciable operating property received by Amtrak or Conrail and the federal government. Alright, 797, the retained earnings appropriated. Account shall include the accumulated amount of the retained earnings having been appropriated set aside with according to the provision mortgage, debt of trust, the reorganization plan, the other agreements requiring payments of the capital funds, sinking funds, other funds, also appropriation of the general contingencies possible for future life in category liabilities actually accrued. Other corporate purpose of the account shall be subdivided by classes of appropriation showing the purpose for which the appropriation is made. Alright, 798, the retained earnings unappropriated. The account shall include the net balance of the debit and credit or of the amounts included the 601, 623, inclusive they shall not include the transfer either from the account of the 785 of the other capital unless the authorized upon application of the board, any balance representation retained earnings segregated with the date of the balance sheet shall include any subdivision of this account. The balance account for 601, 622, 623 inclusive shall be closed if the account at the end of each year. 798, 5 Treasury account shall include the subdivision each of the class of the reacquisition cost of the capital stock which have been actually issued assumed by the carrier of the reacquired and is neither retired nor canceled nor properly includable in the sinking of other funds. This account shall be maintained reflective separately securities and unpledged account shall be shown in the balance sheet. The deduction arriving at stockholders' equity. 799 accumulated comprehensive income. The account shall include the revenue, expense for the gains, losses for the properly includable other comprehensive items during the period. Example: the items over the comprehensive incomes by the foreign currency items, minimum person liability adjustment, unrealized gains, losses, certain investments of the debt, equity, security of the cash flow, hedge of the recording, supporting entries to this account shall be maintained so the carrier of the furniture amount with the other comprehensive income for each item is included with the account. The account shall be debited if the credit with appropriate with the amounts accumulated other than comprehensive income that has been included with the determination net income during the period of the accumulated other comprehensive income of the other period. Separate records for each of the category items maintained with identify the amount of the reclassification adjustment accumulated other comprehensive income earned to the earnings made during the period. Alright, and then it shows the form general balance statement and the assets and their numbers. Alright, conversion tables.